Have you ever wondered where a guy's mind really goes when he's fantasizing about sex? It's not always what you'd expect. Some of the places men imagine are surprising, and they say a lot about what they're actually craving deep down, even if they'd never admit it out loud. These fantasies aren't just about excitement or being adventurous. They're clues to the emotions and needs men often keep hidden. So let's take a closer look at 7 places men fantasize about but don't usually talk about, and uncover what these secret desires really mean. When men fantasize about different places to have sex, it's rarely just about the location. What they're really craving is the experience that comes with it. The rush of something new, the electricity of spontaneity, the break from routine. This is deeply rooted in how the male mind seeks novelty. It's not that they're constantly looking to change partners or chase extremes, but rather they want to keep the feeling of desire alive. In long-term relationships, one of the silent killers of passion is predictability. Men often won't say it out loud, but the urge for a different setting comes from the desire to relight that spark, to feel like something exciting is happening, even with the same person they love and care about deeply. Imagine how a candle flickers in the dark. It's still the same flame, but when the wind moves, it dances a little differently. That's what novelty does in intimacy. It doesn't replace the flame, it makes it dance. When a man fantasizes about, say, getting intimate on a balcony at night or in a car on a quiet road, what he's really fantasizing about is that dance. The unpredictability, the rush, the feeling that something unexpected and exciting is unfolding between 2 people who already know each other. Men don't always talk about this need for novelty because they worry it might sound shallow or immature. They don't want their partner to think they're unsatisfied or always searching for something else. So instead of voicing it, they keep it in their minds. It becomes a silent movie they replay now and then, not because they're discontent, but because they're human. And part of being human is the urge to feel alive. For men, one of the strongest ways they reconnect with that feeling is through fantasy, especially sexual fantasy. And the locations they imagine are often symbolic of breaking free from structure, rules, and monotony. Another reason novelty is such a powerful driver is because it engages all the senses. A new setting brings in different smells, sounds, temperatures, even textures. It shakes up the sensory experience. That adds intensity. That intensity gets anchored emotionally, creating stronger memories and more meaningful experiences. It's not just about the act of sex in a new place. It's about feeling something deeper, feeling alive, feeling wanted, feeling adventurous, and perhaps most importantly, feeling emotionally reconnected with their partner through a shared sense of excitement. What makes this even more interesting is that many men don't even need to act on these fantasies to feel satisfied. Sometimes just knowing their partner is open to spontaneity or curious about what they like is enough to rekindle attraction. It creates a safe space where they can be real without fear. And when that happens, the fantasy becomes less about the place and more about the person they're with. Because the truth is, the most exciting place of all isn't physical, it's emotional connection wrapped in curiosity, trust, and just the right amount of mischief. There's a psychological reason why so many male fantasies involve a sense of risk or secrecy. It's not about recklessness, it's about intensity. When a man imagines being intimate in a place where there's a slight chance of getting caught, or in a setting that feels off limits, it amplifies the entire experience in his mind. That edge of danger creates a powerful cocktail of adrenaline and desire. And for many men, that combination is it makes the moment feel more vivid, more real, more unforgettable. It's not that he's trying to be disrespectful or irresponsible, it's that part of his brain is wired to associate risk with excitement. That's especially true in moments that blur the line between what's allowed and what's daring. Think about it. Even in completely safe, private situations, adding a layer of secrecy or spontaneity can drastically shift the energy. The idea of doing something bold without warning, something that feels forbidden, triggers a rush of endorphins. It's the same principle that makes adventure sports thrilling or gambling addictive. The brain lights up when there's something to lose. So when a man fantasizes about having sex in, say, a public restroom, a library, or a rooftop, what he's really craving isn't necessarily the physical place, it's the emotional high. The thrill of being in the moment with someone, pushing the edge, knowing you're both in on something the rest of the world knows nothing about. This kind of fantasy often reflects a desire to escape control. Most men live highly structured lives. They show up for work, they follow the rules, they play their roles. So when their mind wanders, it naturally reaches for something that breaks all the rules. Something chaotic, something wild. It's not that he wants to throw his life away for a risky encounter. He just wants to feel like, for a moment, the rules don't apply, that he and his partner are caught up in something so intense, so irresistible, they can't help themselves. That fantasy isn't about being reckless, it's about surrender. It's about allowing desire to take over in a way that feels raw and honest. What's interesting is that many men don't feel safe enough to talk about these kinds of fantasies. They're afraid of being misunderstood or, worse, judged. They think if they admit they get turned on by risky situations, their partner will assume they want to cross boundaries or behave irresponsibly. But most of the time, the opposite is true. They're not looking to act out every fantasy. They're looking to feel fully seen and accepted. To say, this is a part of me too, and not have it rejected. When that risk element is received with curiosity rather than criticism, it opens the door to deeper intimacy. It becomes less about where they are and more about who they're with, someone who gets them, even in the secret corners of their mind. When men fantasize about different places to have sex, they're often drawn to scenarios that evoke either a deep sense of control or the complete opposite, total vulnerability. These two emotional poles play a significant role in the way desire is experienced. For some men, the fantasy of being in control taps into a powerful psychological need. It might be about leading, taking charge, or orchestrating the moment exactly the way they imagine it. This doesn't necessarily come from a place of dominance in a harmful way. It can be about creating an environment where they feel confident, competent, and desirable. That sense of control can be heightened by certain locations. A hotel room with the lights low and the music just right, a private office after hours, or even somewhere symbolic like the driver's seat of a car. In these spaces, they feel like the one who sets the pace, directs the energy, and holds the moment in their hands. But on the other side of the spectrum, some fantasies involve surrender, vulnerability, a moment where they don't have to lead at all. This might look like being taken by surprise, seduced unexpectedly, or losing themselves in a situation that pulls them out of their own head. In these fantasies, the location may carry the symbolism of being out of their element, a partner's place, a spontaneous encounter during a getaway, or even a place where they're not used to letting their guard down, like the shower or a dressing room. These settings remove the layers of control and allow them to feel exposed in a way that's actually liberating. It's about letting go. And for many men who spend their lives carrying responsibility, this emotional reversal can be intensely erotic. The push and pull between control and vulnerability is not about choosing one over the other. It's the contrast that makes these fantasies so powerful. On some days, he may want to feel like the protector, the initiator, the one who commands the moment. On other days, he may crave the emotional safety to simply be held, desired, and pursued. Fantasizing about different places allows these dynamics to play out in symbolic form. A dark alley might represent danger and control. A cozy cabin might symbolize trust and emotional surrender. The location becomes a stage, but the real story is what role he's playing and how that role makes him feel. Because most men aren't taught how to express emotional needs through words, they often express them through imagined scenarios. And these scenarios, particularly the ones rooted in place, carry more meaning than they first appear to. They're not just about where, but how. how he wants to feel in the moment, how he wants to be seen, how he wants to experience the connection. The location is just the canvas. What he paints on it through control or vulnerability is what turns it into a fantasy. Men often carry a whole world of thoughts, emotions, and desires they don't always know how or feel safe enough to express. When it comes to sexual fantasies, especially ones involving specific places, silence is more common than openness. Not because they're ashamed, but because they're afraid of being misunderstood. They worry that if they reveal what actually turns them on, their partner might take it the wrong way. They fear judgment, awkwardness, or worse, that it will somehow damage the emotional safety of the relationship. So instead of sharing these thoughts, they tuck them away, filing them under things better left unsaid. Part of this comes from the way society conditions men to handle desire. From an early age, they're taught to chase it, not to talk about it, to perform, not to explain. So they grow up believing that some of their deepest turn-ons, especially ones that seem unconventional, are better kept private. Add to that the pressure of maintaining a certain image in a relationship, the reliable partner, the respectful man, the emotionally mature boyfriend or husband. For many men, voicing a fantasy about having sex on a rooftop at night or in the back seat of a moving car can feel like a betrayal of that image. It sounds reckless, raw, even juvenile, and the last thing they want is to look like they're not taking the relationship seriously. Even in loving, communicative relationships, there can be a fear of rocking the boat. A man might be perfectly happy with his sex life, but still have these thoughts pop into his mind. Fleeting, curious, imaginative. But because these thoughts don't always align with the calm, familiar rhythm of everyday intimacy, he doesn't know how to bring them up. Will she think I'm bored? Will she take it personally? What if she says no and now it's just awkward? Those internal questions often stop the conversation before it even begins. It's important to understand that these unspoken fantasies aren't usually about dissatisfaction. More often, they reflect something he hasn't had the space to explore. It might be the thrill of spontaneity, the rush of the unexpected, or the desire to feel pursued. Whatever the emotional layer behind the fantasy, the hesitation to speak it out loud isn't because it's dark or dangerous, it's because it's vulnerable. To say, "This turns me on," is to take a risk. It's a form of emotional exposure, and that's not easy for someone who's been taught to keep those parts of himself hidden. So instead, he lets it live in his imagination, safe, untouched, and unjudged. It becomes a private space where he can feel completely free, even if it never leaves his mind. And unless he feels total trust and openness in the relationship, that's where it'll stay. Not because he doesn't want to share it, but because he's not sure how or if he'll be received when he does. When men fantasize about specific places to have sex, it's rarely just about the scenery or location. At the heart of these fantasies lies something much deeper, a longing for connection. These imagined scenarios are often less about lust and more about the emotional experience that comes with it. The setting simply enhances the feeling they're trying to capture: freedom, passion, being wanted, or losing themselves completely in the moment. What looks like a physical fantasy is actually a symbol of a deeper emotional need that may not be fully met in everyday life. In many cases, the place a man imagines himself being intimate in reflects a craving for escape, not necessarily from his partner, but from responsibility, pressure, and the everyday routines that strip relationships of spontaneity. The rooftop, the beach, the car, these aren't just places, they're symbols of liberation, of excitement, of a world where nothing else matters except the two people in it. When a man imagines these things, he's not thinking, "I want something inappropriate." He's thinking, "I want to feel that fire again. I want to feel alive with her again." It's the emotional reconnection that matters to him far more than the physical specifics of the fantasy. There's also an unspoken desire many men have to be desired, deeply and unquestionably. In a long-term relationship, affection can sometimes start to feel scheduled or routine. But in his mind, when he fantasizes about being pulled into a spontaneous moment in an unexpected place, what he's really picturing is that he's irresistible to his partner, that she wants him so badly she can't wait. That emotional charge, the idea of being pursued, is intensely validating. It reminds him that the attraction is still strong, that the spark is still there, that he's still the man who can make her lose control. Many men also associate certain places with a time in life when everything felt fresh and unpredictable, like being a teenager in the backseat of a car or sneaking around in places they weren't supposed to be. These weren't just moments of sexual exploration, they were moments when emotions were raw and real. By returning to those places in their minds, men are often trying to tap back into a version of themselves that felt unfiltered, untamed, and fully alive. It's not just about revisiting youth, it's about revisiting intensity. And sometimes these fantasies are a way of trying to close the gap between what he feels and what he's allowed to express. He might not say, "I miss the way we used to get lost in each other," but he might fantasize about making love somewhere wild and unexpected, because in his mind, that place holds the emotional freedom he wants to experience again. It's never just about the fantasy itself. It's about what that fantasy represents, the connection, the adventure, and the feeling of being fully seen and deeply wanted by someone he already loves. A lot of the places men fantasize about having sex are inspired by something they've seen, heard, or experienced in the past. These fantasies often trace back to pop culture, memories from adolescence, or moments that made a lasting emotional impact. Maybe it was a movie scene that left a mark when they were younger. Two people caught in a rainstorm, kissing against a wall, then falling into each other in the heat of the moment. Or a song that played during a scene where passion and spontaneity exploded in some exotic or forbidden place. These moments weren't just entertaining, they became etched into the imagination, blending visuals, emotion, and desire into a mental reference point that sticks with them into adulthood. And men don't always even realize how much their fantasies are shaped by these early impressions. It could be a scene from a music video, a scene from a late-night film, or even a story overheard from a friend. These sources influence not just the content of the fantasy, but also the emotion tied to it. Maybe he saw a scene where a couple snuck away from a party to be alone in a stairwell, and what resonated wasn't just the sex, it was the urgency, the secrecy, the thrill of being wanted right then and there. Years later, he might find himself imagining something similar, not because he's obsessed with stairwells, but because that scene symbolized a kind of intimacy that felt electric and real. Sometimes these fantasies also come from moments in his own life, unfinished experiences or emotionally charged memories. Maybe it was a high school relationship where things almost happened in the backseat of a car but didn't, or a time when the setting was right, the feelings were there, but life interrupted the moment. Those memories linger, not always because of regret, but because of how intense and formative they felt. They become emotional landmarks, and the mind returns to them during moments of desire, curiosity, or even nostalgia. It's less about trying to reclaim the past, and more about trying to access a feeling he hasn't had in a while. Pop culture also plays a powerful role because it offers a kind of permission to feel. A scene from a show or film shows two people getting carried away in a public place, and suddenly that idea feels more acceptable. It sparks a curiosity he might not have had otherwise. The more that scene gets replayed in his head, the more it starts to blur into his own narrative. Eventually, the setting itself, the rooftop, the beach at night, the elevator, becomes charged with meaning. It's no longer about what he saw, it's about how it made him feel. These fantasies aren't about copying what someone else did, they're about recreating a moment that once stirred something powerful inside. A moment that felt passionate, alive, and emotionally unforgettable. And for many men, the place in that fantasy holds the key to unlocking that same feeling again. One of the most overlooked reasons men fantasize about different places to have sex is their desire to break free from the pressure to always perform. In daily life, many men feel like they're expected to be in control, to lead, to know what to do and how to do it. especially when it comes to intimacy. Over time, this can build an invisible weight, making sex feel like another task they need to get right. So when a man's mind drifts to fantasies about unexpected or unconventional places, it's often less about being wild and more about escaping from expectations. In these scenarios, the rules don't apply. The script is thrown out. Everything feels spontaneous, reactive, natural. That mental shift creates relief. It gives him permission to be in the moment instead of trying to manage it. A fantasy about being taken by surprise in a laundry room or pulled into a passionate moment while parked on a dark street is less about location and more about feeling like he doesn't have to plan, perform, or impress. He can just feel, just want, just react. For many men, that's a rare and deeply satisfying experience. It removes the internal pressure that says he always needs to be the one initiating, guiding, and making sure everything goes smooth. In the fantasy, the moment unfolds without effort or responsibility. That's part of what makes it so appealing. It becomes a space where he can simply exist inside the connection without having to carry it. Men also often associate these places with moments where both people are caught up in pure desire. There's no routine, no step-by-step, no performance, just chemistry, heat, urgency. That kind of raw energy lets a man feel chosen, not just accepted. It's different from, okay, let's make time tonight, sex. It's, I want you right here, right now, sex. And that difference between obligation and obsession is huge. Fantasizing about different locations gives that emotional dynamic a home, a setting where he can imagine being completely free from pressure and completely immersed in passion. The fantasy also allows room for imperfection. In a bedroom, especially in a long-term relationship, there can be this unspoken pressure for everything to go perfectly. But in a fantasy that takes place in a spontaneous or unusual setting, nothing has to be flawless. Clothes stay halfway on, hair gets messy, breathing is heavy. It's not about technique, it's about connection. That's a relief for a man who's used to thinking he has to keep everything under control. And these imagined moments, the imperfection, becomes part of the magic. What men often want in these fantasies isn't dominance or wildness, it's relief. Relief from pressure, from predictability, from the idea that they always have to be the strong one, the confident one, the one who knows. These fantasies are a release valve. They're a way of saying, I just want to feel something real without worrying about how it looks or if I'm doing it right. And sometimes that emotional freedom is the most powerful turn-on of all. At the core of these fantasies, whether it's the backseat of a car, a rooftop under the stars, or a quiet corner of somewhere unexpected, what most men are really craving isn't just sex in a different location. It's emotional intensity. It's freedom. It's the chance to feel deeply wanted, to escape the weight of expectations, to reconnect with spontaneity, and to be fully present in the moment without pressure or judgment. These places, imagined and unspoken, are symbols of something more raw and honest. The need to be seen, desired, and emotionally safe enough to express even the most vulnerable parts of who they are. And when those fantasies are met with curiosity rather than criticism, they stop being secrets and start becoming bridges to deeper trust, intimacy, and connection.